Hello, welcome. I am doing another weekly reading because I really love doing readings, and the last one got a really positive response. So today we're going to be focusing on a lot of astrological transits that are going on right now. We are still in the Lionsgate portal energy. There's a Venus-Jupiter conjunction today. There is Mercury has gone direct today. And then Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and Chiron are all retrograde. So there's a lot of shit happening right now. I notice that often, not always, but often when certain things are happening astrologically, especially if they tend to be really positive things, I don't always experience the transits in the same way as is maybe like conventionally expected. And this could be partially because I just have really high expectations, so I build them up. Or, like my lens has, I have the habit in the past, have had the habit of my lens being like kind of negative. So like the Venus-Jupiter conjunction today is a really positive thing. And so I was reading about it and noticing my mind wanting to go to the place. This has been really intensely emotional for me in the past, and today it was more of an observation that was like, oh yeah, my mind is judging this and like reading this as like, oh, this is an overflowing and outpouring of emotional connection and like positivity. And my ego wanted to be like, where the fuck is it? Like, we haven't had the best time lately. And things they've been like good on the scale of me. They've been pretty up there. So I say all that to communicate to you that if you tend to feel like that as well, you are not alone. And I try to remind myself that astrology is meant to be supportive for us, and it is not an opportunity for me to judge myself and my experience harshly. And it's useful to notice if I am feeling like my expectations are out of alignment somehow, and to hold myself with compassion if I do feel disappointed by, I don't know, whatever's happening. So, okay, that was a little preface. I didn't write any questions like last time. We're just going to go with the flow and see what comes up. I think first, I want to ask generally what kind of a place you're in. Like, where are you resting in your awareness? What kinds of energy are you moving through? So I can get, a feeling for how to phrase the rest of the questions. So we have the Knight of Wands and Death underneath. And very interesting, two different riders both holding, I don't want to say sticks, but that's the only word that's coming to mind, poles, Death with the banner, and then Knight of Wands with a wand, obviously. Interesting. So it feels like you're going through a transformation. Okay, so there is some sort of opportunity for ego death here around this really fiery, excitable, forward momentum energy. So like the expectations, hello Celeste. It feels like you are examining, you have the opportunity to examine the expectations that you have for yourself and your life around forward momentum. So the feeling that things need to be really charging ahead, and maybe you find yourself in cycles of getting really hyped up about something, feeling really high and having really positive expectations. And then death comes along and is like not matching the energy of what you were thinking, how quickly you were wanting things to progress. So there's certainly an aspect, like I keep saying, of transformation here. So everyone on this card is struggling to, I don't know how, yeah, you can see that. Everyone is struggling to meet death, except for this child at the bottom is facing death head on. Like, this person is just flat out. The Pope or this priest figure is like crying blood, looks like begging. And this woman is like turned away. And the child is this sense of innocence. It's like your true nature, the part of you that doesn't die. And that's why I keep referring to this as an ego death, because that's what transformation is about. The personality part of us that we can get really wrapped up with and identify with, that is really just the clothes that we're wearing for this particular incarnation. And it feels so threatening and can be really, really intense and deeply uncomfortable when this part of us is being shown something outside of what we identify with. And often leading up to that death is a really intense struggle, at least that has been my experience, because our personality self, even if something's changing, that is ultimately very positive. Our ego is so identified with the negative circumstances and seeing things through a lens that feels safe, which is often very negative, that it is like fighting tooth and nail. So again, I hope that I'm being clear about this. The transformation is to a more positive experience of the world, because the desires that we want are things that we know will make us feel better. And often the way that those things come in for us feels like everything is crumbling, because our ego, our personality, is identified with the negative way of seeing the world. So even though the transformation is leading us in a positive direction, because it is the process of the ego dying, that particular iteration of us, the ego doesn't ever fully die, or else we'd just be soup. Yeah, so it looks like everything is falling apart, and we go really deeply into these are the perspectives that are not serving us come to the forefront, because that's what's being cleared away. And so it gets really intense, and it feels like we're gonna die, you know, maybe not literally, but we're like, everything is horrible. Okay, so that might not be your experience. You know, there are varying degrees of this, but if you were really going hard on this, full speed ahead, things are on fire, we're moving, and then death is coming in, that can feel like, yeah. Okay. So, trying to decide what direction to take this in. What is it that is being cleared with these transits? So what part of you, we can see that there's death, and it's a death around the ego's attachment to like full speed ahead, around our passions. But what are we being asked to clear? Or what is just naturally being cleared? This isn't, I don't know, my perspective right now is that it's really not an active, like, the most that we're being asked to do at any given moment is be present with what is. It's not like something that we have to work at or earn. I think our shadow work is just to be with ourselves in presence, because that is, again, from my perspective, like the hardest fucking thing to do. It's much harder to just be with what is and observe what's coming out and trust that it's being released on its own than it is to go really hard and heavy at a bunch of techniques to try to give ourselves a sense of control and feel like we're making something happen. And that isn't to, demonize techniques that help you regulate or self-inquiry or anything like that. Like, if there are things that make you feel better, then those are worth engaging in. But noting the part of you, noticing and loving, and maybe not acting on if it feels like comfortably stretchy, the urge to do something in an attempt to escape where you are. So we have the Nine of Wands and the Hierophant. So, this is the problem with not writing down my questions, because I don't remember exactly what I asked. So I was asking, like, what is being cleared? So it's this mentality that just one more push and everything will be perfect. Everything will land, everything will come in. Oh, fuck, it's not the Hierophant, it's Justice. Interesting. And so the Nine of Wands is so much about this, like, the last stand and clinging to doing things in a way that doesn't serve you. So it's like you've been fighting this battle for so long, and you have more options than you realize when you're in this energy. You've been doing things this way for so long that you're kind of in a groove and feeling like you can't let your guard down, like you're almost there. And the solution for this particular energy is not in the way that you have been viewing the world, not in the perspective that you have always chosen. And Justice it feels like Justice is reminding us that there is always a balance. And when we are in this mindset of, like, last stand, I need to defend myself no matter what. And this is the ego, by the way. This really ties into what I was talking about with ego death. We are unable to see that balance. This is part of balance coming in. And often the balance is, you think that the scales need to be balanced externally, and things look really unfair, but the balance happens inside of you. And it doesn't mean gaslighting yourself out of the ways that you want or need things to change externally. because you want those things for a reason. But it does mean that everything external is pointing you back to something happening internally that's an opportunity for rebalancing a part of yourself. Justice is also associated with Libra. So in my own chart, is deeply interwoven with the experience of relationships and having strong boundaries, appropriate, healthy boundaries. So that can mean opening up to more vulnerability when it feels unsafe to do so. But ultimately means seeing your external relationships as indicators of what is needing attention within you. And again, that doesn't mean that there won't be actions to take in the external world. But in order to know what those actions are, first you have to examine what is true inside of you. So what energy or focus would be supportive for you right now as these blocks are clearing? So the Nine of Wands as like extreme self-sufficiency, feeling like you can't count on anyone else, like you've always had to do it alone, and that's just how it's going to continue to be. Okay, Queen of Pentacles and the Four of Pentacles. So the Four of Pentacles is also about boundaries. I'm getting the feeling in this context it's about healthy boundaries. So sometimes we read this card as clinging too tightly to material possessions and not allowing the flow to be balanced, because, you know, the more money you have, the larger your investments will be. So there's always that inflow and outflow. Like if you're investing more, that means you'll have to be more comfortable releasing more, even though you have more. I don't know, I'm saying more a lot. So it can also refer to, because the Pentacles are about physical energy as well. So this can be talking about energy leaks and making sure that you are pouring into yourself first before you are like prioritizing your own self-care, energetically, physically. So looking at ways that you are giving to others before you've taken care of your own needs. And this is especially relevant in situations where people pleasing has kept you safe. So if you have a background of trauma, which I feel like who doesn't, but that's just my perspective. If you grew up in a situation where attuning to your caregivers was a matter of life and death because your home was volatile, there was violence, and yeah, I mean, when you are a child, that's literally like, there's not a part of your brain that can rationalize, like, I won't actually die in this situation. So even if the abuse is emotional or spiritual, your very survival depends on your caregivers. And so growing up in a situation where your caregivers were draining your own energy, whether, intentionally or because you were so attuned to reading other people's emotions because, you had to keep the peace to stay safe, whatever the situation was. That's how, we get people who grow up and are people pleasers or are more focused on keeping others comfortable before themselves. And so to support yourself to give yourself the gift of a different perspective when you're this, like, you've been fucking fighting, you are battle worn and tired, you're wounded, but your defenses are up and you feel like you don't have another option. Take care of yourself first. Figure out where you are leaking energy, and that is probably going to feel really uncomfortable, and you might feel really selfish at first, but that is getting you to this place where you are able to see the reality of yourself as being resourced and fully enjoying your physical, like the physicality of being a human. I think another thing for me that has come up when my ego is feeling really threatened, and I'm going to write about this when I write about my medicine circle journey, but something that comes up for me often is the feeling of meaninglessness, and like if I'm not getting what I want, then there is no meaning. Life is just suffering and there's no point, because it's all endless suffering and the things I want are just in existence to torture me. And so it takes so much fortitude and courage and tenacity to choose, even in really, really small ways, when you're in this Nine of Wands moment, to choose to find things that feel just a tiny bit better, and find, again, they might be really, really small moments, the things that are bringing you a feeling of meaning and enjoyment. Because we are not in physical forever. In the grand scheme of things, it's, a very, very short amount of time. Time is, meaningless, doesn't really exist. But as far as our experience of this incarnation compared to eternity, the eternity, infinity of existence, there is so much to enjoy about being physically incarnated, and that might not be what you want to hear. It might be really hard to hear. I know it is for me when I'm not in that place. It feels like bullshit. But those small things that you can cling to right now are going to help you shift out of the Nine of Wands defensiveness into that internal rebalancing. And those are also ways that you help to shore up this energy leak. Because you have to choose yourself and your own joy, even if it's in really small moments. Like, that has to just be about you. I mean, it can involve other people, but that is a really courageous reclamation of your deservingness to experience something positive. And that is so meaningful when you're in the throes of transformation and everything feels like it will never be good again. So, how is the Lionsgate contributing to this energy? What is the gift or challenge of the Lionsgate energy? Ooh. Okay, so 5 of Cups and the 4 of Swords. So there is grief here, and that is both a gift and a challenge. So there is this observation of these 3 cups, which in the 3 of Cups is a celebration, and it can refer to like physical enjoyment, partying, things that feel good. So it can be very positive and like sharing community, but it can also refer to things that turn into addictions. And so in the 5 of Cups, those things that were bringing relief are no longer an option. And I mean, really, addictions serve to, like, they're covering something deeper up, right? So when they're no longer working, they're not an option any longer. We're left with what was underneath them, which is this grief. Which, honestly, I mean, it's grief, right? It fucking sucks, but it also is, like, feels so good to let that go when you've been holding on to it for so long. And I don't mean good and like, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel good, but it does feel good to let it go and release. And the 4 of Swords is feeling like this period of contemplation. This feels related to the Justice card. So this position that this person is in is, and I mention her in every video, I'm going to mention her again. I know this because of Rachel. The history behind this card is that, and also in the books, 78 Degrees of Wisdom about the tarot, I'm pretty sure the history is in there. So soldiers during the Middle Ages would have a casket made for them before they left for battle. I think this is like Crusades era. And when they came back alive, they would lay in their casket and thank God that they were still alive and ask for forgiveness for the other people that they had killed in battle. So this is a period of rest, but it's also kind of, that's why it's reminding me of justice, because there's a sense of balance here. It's like the gratitude that they're alive and also asking for forgiveness for the part that they played in others' suffering. I'm trying to think what more is coming out with that in relation to grief. So that is part of this grieving that's happening for you. is it's like almost like a grief at still being here, like still being alive, still doing this, but then contrasted with the grief of, you know, there are people that you've lost. So not what I would have, I mean, I wouldn't have known what to expect, but that's how this Lionsgate with Sirius, which is our spiritual sun, being lined up the way that it is, all of these energies are coming in. And grieving is always to clear space for more expansiveness, more joy. Yeah. Again, it takes a lot of courage to experience this. And it takes a lot of, if you are grieving, you are showing up for yourself in such a big way, because it means facing things that don't feel good to admit, but it is deeply necessary to move that energy. Yeah, and that feels like the contemplation aspect of this Four of Swords. Okay, so where do we want to go from here? What is this making room for? This grieving and contemplation. The grieving is part of the rebalancing. So what is it making space for? Okay. We had 5 cards come out with this one. So 8 of Wands, the Empress, Knight of Swords, Queen of Wands, you see, yeah, and the 6 of Cups. A lot of wand energy. So the 8 of Wands are about really fast movement, and they can refer to messages coming in. They're also called like the arrows of love or some shit. So I always think of them as like the universe is going to fucking hit you with love and there's nothing you can do about it, which is like such a nice like positively threatening or threateningly positive. And it's also bringing in this really deep embodiment of your passion and what's really, really important to you. So if you're at the part of transformation and ego death, expansion, that's feeling really heavy and you're like, just what is the fucking point? Like, I don't care about any of this. I'm done with everything. This is you getting your spark back, and not just like getting it back, but being really embodied in your craft and allowing this energy of creation and fire to flow through you. Yeah, and it's sorry to say, but it's coming in hot. It's coming for you. And then even more so, this Empress energy is okay. First, also, just have to say, we have the Queen of Pentacles and the Queen of Wands. So the Empress I mean, she's kind of like the ultimate like combination of all of the queens. But this is like the fertile female mother archetype, and you know, it's gender neutral, but it's like the anima, the matter of creation, and feeling so deeply resourced, knowing yourself as being so deeply resourced. And I also want to say that as I have gone through different periods of expansion, I have experienced this in a very wide variety of circumstances, different levels of like financial resourcedness, both in and out of relationships. And I will say that whatever you're feeling in the moment of, you know, whatever stories your ego is bringing up that are like kind of kicking and screaming on their way to the chopping block, those stories are center on external things, that it's like if these things were just different, then I would feel better. But the point that I'm trying to make is that like this is how you know, this is like your indicator, your what am I trying to say? Your check engine light, or whatever you want to call it, that's alerting you to the fact that this is an illusion of the ego. Because if you look back at your own life experience, you will be able to find times that you felt like this. And I mean, if you're in the midst of this, it's going to be a little more challenging to do, because the ego is very, very jaded when you're having a hard time, when you're down. But this experience will have happened to you at so many different points in your life when things were vastly different, and in every circumstance. So like it's probably more helpful if I use examples. So like in the circumstance of, you know, feeling like you're calling in a divine partnership, and if you just had that, then you wouldn't feel the way that you feel. You can probably think of a time in your past where you were in a relationship and it was something else. So the point that I'm trying to make is that it's never truly about the external, but it feels very, very real in the moment. So the Empress is about the energy of embodying the knowing that you are this divinely resourced being, and that holds true no matter how you're feeling or what evidence you're looking at, because it's a bigger truth than the perspective that you have in this moment, especially when you're having a hard time. Okay, Knight of Swords. It's interesting that we got the Eight of Wands and the Knight of Swords. So the Knight of Swords is more I'm trying to say a word that it's like has to do with the mind, and I am not thinking of the word that I'm wanting. So this is more of a, yeah, they're both similar energies, but they're often read in similar ways. But the wands are more, they're about that, the fire and passion. And the Knight of Swords is about the mind and thoughts, the way that we use our mental facilities, our mental faculties. So this feels like kind of going on the offensive. With how you are relating to your thoughts and beliefs. And right after the Knight of Swords, we have the Six of Cups, which is about healing, like deeply rooted patterns, ancestral healing, and like these flowers blooming from the water of our emotions. So I feel like the energy of this Knight of Swords is like, fuck it. I don't fucking care what evidence my mind is giving me. I know what I want. I know that I wasn't just put here to suffer. And I'm staying present with what is. I'm staying present with what is moving through, because the energy is very fast moving. So yeah, it's almost like witnessing how quickly your mind and your perspective can shift, because thoughts are transient. They're always coming and going. They're not the truth. They are a truth that we can love ourselves through, but they're not they're not something to build on. Like, you can watch them come and go and notice yourself getting hooked into something and following it, kind of crusading with it, and then realizing, oh, I can just let that go. I can let that pass by. I don't have to get invested in that particular story. And that's what's bringing in this healing, using your emotions as like this fertile ground for growing, receiving gifts, and receiving the gifts of your lineage, of your experiences, rather than, and it's a fine line, right? Like, acknowledging both and, the pain and the trauma, and also being determined to receive the love that you know is here for you, that you are like tenaciously giving yourself, even though it's not the blueprint you were given as a child and it doesn't come easily to you, but you're doing it anyways. Wow, okay, so in the context of the reading, this was what is coming in, what is being cleared, the grief and the rest and introspection is clearing the way for all of this energy, this embodying your creativity and your passion, seeing yourself as this Empress energy that is so deeply and wildly resourced. And yeah, this is also in that context feeling like being your own protector. So, and I mean, protecting yourself from your own mind. So it's like the sword is cutting through the clouds here. Yeah, and then receiving this healing. Okay. So, what gifts? I don't feel like we have time to ask about each of the retrogrades individually. So maybe let's ask about the gifts that, so today is the Venus-Jupiter conjunction and Mercury going direct. So what, I'm going to switch decks. This is a new to me deck, so I'm excited to try it out. In what ways is today's astrology supporting us in this cleansing and clearing? How are we being supported, and what are we being gifted with this astrology today? Okay, so we have the Four of Wands and the Empress again in this deck. So the Four of Wands is an alignment and a celebration. And then, of course, the Empress. So I love that we got that. We are getting double Empress energy. So even if it doesn't feel like it, I'm rooting for you. I'm hoping that it does. But it might take a little bit for this to kick in. But today we are being given support and the gift of alignment and feeling ourselves as part of nature, like the earth herself. And alignment, you can be in alignment even when things aren't feeling like they're super good or like anything significant is happening. You choosing to be with yourself in whatever you're moving through, not to earn anything, not because you have to do it right so that you stay in alignment. It's not like staying on the straight and narrow. It's just being present with what is for you. And that's what keeps you in touch with your Empress energy. These cards are so pretty. And I feel like whenever I see this, I'm kind of like, oh yeah. But it bears repeating that you are a part of nature. Your energy is integral to the balance of the earth. And you're here for a reason right now. And even if that doesn't feel good, that's okay. It does not change the fact that you matter and there is a bigger purpose. And whatever you're doing is exactly right. So if you are feeling really fucking good and on top of things, your higher self is celebrating. If you're feeling really low and you're raging or you're just like done with everything, your higher self is celebrating, because whatever you're doing is exactly right for you. You can't get it wrong. You being authentic to what you're moving through is like, that's it. That's all that you have to do. And it is helpful to remember that this one particular experience is not the full truth of who you are, that you are everything in existence in one little package, like you are divinity. The bigger part of you is God, and you are connected to everything. You contain the universe inside of you, but you can't get it wrong. You just can't. Like, you're existing. And I think it takes consistency and determination to cling to that when things are dark. And you also don't have to. Like, if you're like, no, fuck that, I'm letting go of that, do it. That's part of your experience right now. And there will be a time on the other side of this when you come back to a more balanced place and you feel good again, because that is just life. That's how emotions work. But yeah, you're doing everything right, especially if it doesn't feel like it. I promise. You're here, you're living, you're doing it. So I love you. Reach out if you need anything, and let me know if this reading was helpful for you. I really love hearing from you. And there will be an energy transmission to support you and everything that you're moving through, and enhance the reception of the astrological energy. So if that feels supportive for you, that will be down below for premium members, and I will talk to you soon.